Welcome back to another episode of Acceptable Madness. My name is Scott McKinney, and this is the podcast for people that struggle with mental illness. This week, I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind a bit more recently, and that is arrogance, and my struggle with it. Now, this is a topic that I can promise you that if some people that I went to high school with and people that I was friends with early and even in some of my later college career, if they knew that I was making a podcast about my self-awareness for my tendency to be arrogant, they would be very, very surprised. Now, I don't think anymore that I am a super arrogant person. Just growing up, I've realized that you start to realize, you start to see the world in a different light, and everybody equals out. Like there's no one that I'm better than or that is really better than me. But there's always going to be people out there that are better than you at something. But then at the same point, like there's things that I'm better than them at. So everybody, just based on talent, skill, and personality alone, are completely equal playing fields. And that was something that it took me a long time to figure out. And the reason for that, I really don't know, but I think it's a safe bet to say that there may have been some correlation between my arrogance starting the same time that my depression started. And it's weird because you'd think that'd be reversed. Do you think that whenever you start feeling depression or anxiety or other mental illnesses, that, one of the things that I feel a lot is I feel like I'm a burden on so many people. And so you'd think that reasonably within my brain, if I feel like I'm a burden to the people that I associate myself with and the people that I'm talking to, then wouldn't it be a safe assumption to say that I feel like I am not better than other people and that I am in turn not an arrogant person and actually probably swinging too far the other way? But that's not how I dealt with it. The way that I dealt with my depression was by kind of completely disassociating myself from my own emotions. And what that kind of led to was me believing that I was better than some of the people that I was in contact with or that I dealt with for whatever reason. And there's really no good reason for it. I think it was just a natural self-defense mechanism that my brain just kind of went after and latched onto. So, like, for example, whenever I started hitting that, the tumultuous time that is puberty, and you start to feel all these different emotions, and then for me, that was when my depression and anxiety started to hit really hard. I just I closed off all of my emotions, and then the first thing that I started to do, and I didn't realize it at the moment, was I started to just become an asshole in some regard. Now, I don't even know if it was arrogance that I was necessarily dealing with, because I didn't think I was better than other people. I frequently thought that I was worse, but I portrayed myself and I acted in a way that was very pompous a lot of the time and made it seem like to other people that I thought I was above them. And quite frankly, I'm not surprised that I do not have a lot of contacts from high school that I still talk to. For one thing, people just move on and everybody's lives expand in different directions, and that's great. It's just how people grow up, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'll go on Facebook and I'll see people that I'm friends with on Facebook, but really not that close to and never really even talked to that much, just people that I was kind of associated with through high school. And they'll go out and they'll talk to people and they'll hang out with some friends that they went to high school with. And I do it very rarely. And again, I think a lot of this can just be kind of I can point to the fact that I was a pompous asshole. Now, why do I think that I got to that point? I kind of brushed on it before because I mentioned that maybe it was just this defense mechanism, but it's something that I want to talk about a little bit more, because it's such a weird backwards thought process that it doesn't really make any sense to me. So as a person, I felt like I was a burden, and I wasn't comfortable accessing my emotions in any way that was really, worthwhile or personal or vulnerable or any of that stuff. And so instead of letting myself be vulnerable and realizing that that can actually lead to slightly better or significantly better, if you can do it in a good way, but better mental health and better communication and friendships and relationships and all that stuff. If I had figured that out at an earlier age, then I'm sure that my attitude and personality would have been affected significantly throughout my younger ages. But instead, I just held on to it for this really long time where, so my name is Scott McKinney, and, a nickname came up. I don't remember if I started it or someone else, but I was referred to as Scott McSexy for a while. Now, I can look in the mirror and understand that nickname, I do not find myself unattractive. I don't find myself overly attractive. And Scott McSexy is a weird nickname or play on my last name for how I look. And I have no problem admitting that. And I don't know. It was just, it was a bunch of stupid stuff like that kind of started to build this weird barrier around me, and kept, expanding this ego to a point where it was, not very controlled. So like I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm not a genius. I'm not, great in a lot of the sciences. Honestly, I love to write, but whenever I was in high school, I never applied myself. And I was one of the students that could scoot by really easily and not really have to apply themselves at all for any classes. I was either able to find the answers through just kind of listening in class, or doing the homework, because you have to do the homework or else you're going to fail, or at least, have worse grades. And I was still trying to maintain an AB average. But I never had to apply myself. And I think that was something that whenever I was in high school, I was able to see that. And instead of thinking in a way that's like, okay, well, I don't have to apply myself to do well in this particular class. But if I do apply myself, then I can do very, very well and get much farther. But that wasn't the mentality that I had at that moment. The mentality that I had was, I don't have to try very hard, so fuck it. I'm just not going to try very hard. And I was able to get through all these classes with A's and B's, and I think I had 1 or 2 C's throughout all of my high school and like middle school, all of my, I guess, primary education. I maybe only had 1 or 2 C's, and I was comfortable with that, and I was pretty happy with it. There was actually 9 weeks that I tried really hard to get straight A's, and whenever I did get them. I only got straight A's once, and I was super unenthused by it because I didn't personally benefit from anything. Like, money didn't shoot out of my ass. I didn't get a parade. Yeah, I didn't get all these fancy things because I got straight A's. It was just a pride thing for me. I mean, a lot of people do it because they have to be very successful in school, and that's just something that they feel. That's something that they work very hard for. But for me, I feel like I was doing it for an outcome, or more to just prove to myself that I could do it if I really wanted to apply myself. And then after I got it, I had no desire to get it again. So I started slacking off a lot more. So what that showed me in my naive, stupid brain was that I didn't need to try. And so there are other people that have to try significantly harder in school just to maintain grades that are good enough to graduate. Maybe not in honors, but just to graduate. And to me, that was never a big problem. And I think I looked at it not as, all these people have these different skills and talents, and maybe just education might not be what they're good at this exact moment. Like, I'm sure that there are people, especially people that go into like the trades and stuff like that, like mechanics, plumbers, all of those people could do those jobs 100,000 times better than me. But I mean, and it's just kind of the way that our society has been built, is people that are seen as smarter or, they go for a higher education. They go to become a doctor and, get this prestigious fancy degree from a prestigious and fancy school. They're seen as like, I don't know. I guess just the blunt way to put it is the way that our society values them is better than they value the people that do these jobs that are arguably more important than a lot of the degrees people are getting from colleges, whether it's through undergrad, doctorate, or master's. But the way that affected me, just kind of stepping back, is I realized I didn't have to try hard in school. And so I realized that I was a pretty smart kid early on, and I looked at it in a way that made me become arrogant and a douchebag about it. I never made fun of people for being stupid, at least not maliciously. I mean, I'll tease my friends and stuff like that, and they'll tease me right back. So that's not a big deal, but it was just something that kind of led to me seeing myself in a different light. Now, something else that led to my arrogance is, and I feel like I think this is something that a lot of people deal with and think about, but I could be wrong, because I've realized that since a young age, I always, I have an entrepreneurial drive. I want to start a business. I like to write. I would love to be a successfully published author if that was the only job that I had, besides doing my passion projects, which is this podcast, or, I'd go back and make some videos on YouTube under my other pseudonym, Mr. Eighth Wonder. I have 5 videos out, and I don't know, they're okay. I think they're kind of funny, but if I could do that with all my time, I'd be thrilled. But what I was saying is, I feel like a lot of people when they're younger, especially when they're younger, they have this drive and ambition to do something bigger than themselves. Some people want to become doctors, and they really want to help people every day. Other people want to become the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and some people want to cure cancer and Alzheimer's and stuff like that. These really noble causes. And just like any other kid, I was in the same boat. And for the longest time, it wasn't, I'm going to focus on what I'm passionate about. It was, I'm going to follow a career path that can allow me to make a difference in the world. And because that was the goal that I was setting out to do, and not, I want to do something that I love, it was, I want to do this for a goal. I think I took another step up that pedestal that I was building for myself. I'm trying to do something for the greater good, as opposed to I'm just kind of trying to survive and enjoy my life. And I think everybody has those thoughts, but I could be incredibly wrong, because I know a lot of other people, they hit a point in their life where they're just I'm going to let someone else cure cancer. I'm really content and actually thrilled and happy with my wife or husband and kids and just all the stuff that I have going on. And that's something that I have a really hard time, even now at almost the age of 23, I have a hard time grasping, because maybe it's because I'm still young, but I still have this probably naive view of the world where I think I can do something significant to help. But my thought on that is, you need to have some sort of naivety if you want to go into the world and really try to do something different. Because if you go out there and you think that you can't do anything, then you're just not going to be able to. So for me, I hope this podcast finds a lot of people, and if it stops at only a few, and I made this explicitly clear in previous episodes, I'm happy with it only reaching a few people. But it's one of those things where even if I didn't think that people were going to be interested, I never would have started this in the first place. So it's just an interesting mix of you need to have this naive belief in yourself, which is in itself a little bit arrogant, because you think that you can do something in the world, but at the same time understanding that there's a chance that it'll never happen. I was watching the comedian Bill Burr the other day, and I don't remember which special it was, but it was filmed in completely black and white. It was on Netflix. And one of the things that he said was, and clearly this is a comedy routine, so take it with as much weight as you want, But he made a comment saying, adulthood becomes significantly better when you realize that all your hopes and dreams won't come true. And I thought it was funny because the person that just told me this is Bill Burr, who is an incredibly gifted comedian who dedicated his life to the craft that he's working in. And he, for comedy's sake, is able to make a comment saying that, like, you're never going to have your dreams come true. But then on the other end, you're looking at Bill Burr and his dreams have come true. Now, I'm sure that I don't know him personally, so I'm sure that there are other underlying dreams that he's never going to be able to accomplish, which is fine because, if I accomplished every goal that I set out to accomplish, then I'd have a boring life because then you'd hit a point where you wouldn't have any more goals to go after, and then that's when complacency sets in. And that's one of my biggest fears. But I feel like maybe the fact that I was trying to go after something that I thought was more grand and potentially prestigious was something that, I put myself on a higher pedestal. So whenever I saw someone that was going for like an IT position or just like web design or one of the trades or honestly a lot of careers, even if you were just going for like a engineering and you were going to be in an entry-level position, I think the way that I looked at that was, okay, well, you're going to be an engineer, but I want to be the engineer or the marketing professional or the big company. It was never like, I want to be an engineer that starts off at entry level and then gets promoted to management. And then after 8 years of doing a pretty consistently good job, I'm promoted to another step up and then another step. But then I basically plateau there because I don't have that kind of, I have my family and kids to think about. I don't want to go too far. I don't want to have to travel all the time. And so to me, that's like, I don't personally, and I didn't see that as like a plausible thing that I really couldn't see myself doing. But yeah, I don't know where the arrogance came from. Maybe it was just the fact that I was young and immature and I didn't have a good grasp on the world yet. I didn't know how it works. I still don't, but the arrogance has kind of calmed down a little bit, and I don't think I'm as bad as I used to be. And things that have kind of put me back in my place and to a point where I'm a person that's more fun to have a conversation with than I would have been 5 years ago is one, like I mentioned earlier, I sold my old job, the one that I just got laid off from, is I was selling newspaper ads, and to modern businesses that have realized that we are in the internet age and they have found other ways to advertise their business, I was getting rejected so goddamn much, it's ridiculous. And so every rejection you get as a salesperson, they add up. You feel those. You notice them, the first few really suck, and then you get another 10, and then it's not that big a deal. And then you get another 20, and, they start to add up, and they can be a little bit brutal to deal with, but they're a very humbling experience. I didn't love my first job, but the experience that I got from it and being able to deal with rejection and really trying hard to better yourself in a situation that really all the cards were stacked against you for has helped to humble me out also, where I don't feel like I can walk into every job and do perfectly or do amazing. And there are people there that have worked there that have a very different background. Maybe they did have a college degree, maybe they didn't, maybe they did and it was in a completely different field. But some of those people have just, become significantly better strictly through practice and being there for a long time. So going into there, getting rejected a lot, and also realizing that I was not as good a salesperson as all the other people around, no matter the reason that was true, was humbling, along with the fact that I am constantly sending out my book, whichever one I'm working on at that given moment, to different agents, which look it over, and they realize very quickly if they think it's good or bad, and then they just pass, or... Well, there's no or yet, but hopefully there will be an or soon. But they always pass. But it's just, there have been humbling experiences for me recently. But I don't know. What I do know about arrogance is I think I became an arrogant piece of shit for a really long time, and I don't want to blame it on anything in particular. There's a bunch of variables. Maybe it was immaturity. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding of how the world really works. Maybe it was the fact that it was this barrier that I was putting up to try to prevent myself from getting hurt by letting myself seem to be something less than perfect or close to it. If you're arrogant and you can truly believe it, then when someone says that you suck at something or that you're bad at something or that you won't succeed, or whenever the thoughts inside your head tell you that you're not worth anything and that you should kill yourself, you have to have some thick skin for that shit. So putting up these walls and becoming that pompous piece of garbage might have been something that allowed me to keep pushing forward and eventually work it out. So, I've become significantly less arrogant as I've kind of figured out more and more how to deal with my mental health and how, stuff works for me and what doesn't work for me and all that stuff. And it's all just going into this one long journey of trying to figure out who I actually am. And it's stuff that I didn't have the ability to figure out 5 or 10 years ago. So it's just, I don't know. It's just been a very humbling experience figuring out that I'm one of a kind, but there are a lot of other people out there that are better than me at some stuff and worse than me at others. And but everybody has merit, and that's something that is a really, really hard lesson to learn when you have depression or anxiety or whatever other mental illness you have. It's a really hard lesson to learn, because if you let yourself believe that everybody has something that makes them special and a reason for them to be loved, then you have to believe it about yourself too. You have to believe that there's something special about you and that there's a reason that you should keep going on, and that you might not have it yet or you may not have found it yet, but there's a reason for you to keep pushing forward. And maybe it's because you're going to become an artist that sells someone their favorite piece of art, and they're the only people that see it, but they look at it every day and they get a small smile on their face. And you did that. And thinking about art, I don't think Michelangelo ever expected to paint the Sistine Chapel and be remembered in the way that he did. He was just doing a job at that moment. And it's so weird to think, hundreds of years ago, this guy painted a ceiling, a sculptor painted a ceiling, and now today, it's still something that is one of the most breathtaking pieces of art that's ever been created, at least in my opinion. Way better than the Mona Lisa. I don't know. It's really hard to understand that everybody has merit. And I do think that part of the reason that I became an arrogant piece of shit was because if I believed I was better than everybody, then not everybody had merit, including myself. And I know that, again, just like most of the thoughts and things that I've said in this episode, that seems backwards and counterintuitive. But when your brain's full of all this shit that just seems to be attacking you all the time, nothing's really that straightforward or intuitive at all. So I'm not surprised in the slightest that it doesn't make as much sense to me as I would like for it to. It's just a really weird feeling. It's unique. But what I can say is that having an appreciation for the people that I've met and come across and have impacted my life, knowing that everybody that I've met has done something to me or impacted me in a way that only they could, that's really cool. And going through life realizing that every person has merit is a more fun way to go through life, because then every conversation that you're going into with someone, even if you have very, very, very drastically different opinions or thoughts, you can look at this person and know that even if you disagree on every philosophy that you have, there's still merit there, and that's still someone, and they have a family, they have parents, they have kids or a wife or whatever else, they have a job, and they have these talents that make them unique and make them good at what they do. And it's just a cool feeling, just being able to go outside and you just walk around and you see someone that you've never met before, and you may never even talk to them. They may not even acknowledge that you exist. Maybe you make that weird, awkward eye contact as you walk past them on the street, but you don't have to know them to know that they're special in some way too. I mean, granted, there's always going to be some assholes out there that do stuff in their own self-interest, but then, so maybe there are some people that are maybe not as perfect as others, but I mean, it's a huge spectrum. So for just as many people that are going to be sociopathic, murderers, there's going to be someone that dedicates their entire life to someone else's well-being. And so all you have to do is find the ones that like dedicating themselves to everybody else's well-being, and then you're going to have a more fulfilling life and more fulfilling relationships, and even just a more fulfilling way to look at the human race. It's really easy to look at humanity and see all the problems. There are a lot. People fuck up. There's a lot of really bad people out there that are in, the public eye and that aren't in the public eye. There's a lot of corruption in politics, and I won't go into anything, but I'm not even saying so. Like, I'm from the United States, and I am not very politically minded, and honestly, I don't really care most times. But like, think about some of the other countries that I don't even know like anything about. Like, there are a lot more countries, like Venezuela is one that comes to mind, that has a lot of problems there. So it's really easy to get caught up on all those. But if you can just walk around and you walk down the street one day and you pass that guy who's at the park and he's running and he's super out of breath and he looks super uncomfortable and out of place, like he's doing something that it's just for him. And, he's doing something, maybe he's trying to get healthy, maybe he's just trying to relieve stress, but there's some reason that he's doing what he's doing, and he's doing it in a very special and unique way that only he could, or she, or anyone. I know this is kind of a weird podcast, and it's very vague, but it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting to get rid of that arrogant veil that I kind of held over the world and look at it from a really equal perspective, no matter race or ethnicity or background or sexual orientation. Everybody's got some sort of special something with them. And it's cool to see that, and it's cool to understand it, and it's really fun and interesting and fulfilling to value those people. So, I don't know. I think I've rambled long enough. I feel like this has been a particularly rambly episode. So sorry if that's the case, but I don't know. Just try to think about some of the stuff I said, I guess. Just try to appreciate people and try not to think you're above them, even if you disagree with them, because they'll have some interesting insight too. And even if you continue to disagree with that, just know that they have a family that they make happy too. So, thanks for listening. Bye.